Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to introduce his mentor, Ben Tan. Ben, raise your hand. Thank you, Ben, for helping out with this talk, along with our new local speaker. As we mentioned this morning, BSides is about having conversations in a respectful manner, so I just want to put that out there as well. With that, Greg is going to be talking about hacking diversity. Here you go, Greg.
All right. I have bad legs, so I'm probably going to end up sitting down, and I'm a little tipsy, so definitely going to end up sitting down. My talk is about hacking diversity. I'm Gregory Thomas. That's also all my nicknames. Call me any of those names, and I'll respond to them.
Platinum Macaroni.
Yes, Platinum Macaroni, Lamborghini saxophones. I respond to all those. Bugatti biceps, baby. Holla at your boy. Yeah, I probably need that. Yeah, that might make me. Oh, that's a lot better. How about that? Most people call me Black Stark, so from Tony Stark. All right. That's what we're here for. To answer the question, where are the minorities in IT? Take a look around. It's pretty monochromatic, right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Why are tech companies struggling with diversity? No, for real. Where are all the minorities? Because there's like really not many. Currently, the tech workforce right now is 5% Latina, and 4% Black, which is not a good reflection of the current population statistics of 22% Latina, and 13% Black. About me. Well, I'm Black. If you didn't know, sorry, I know it's a big reveal, but I'm Black. I grew up in Cabrini Greens, West Side and South Side Chicago, so I'm Chicago born and raised. Served in the Marines for 5 years. I served as a registered nurse for 3, and I've actually this week is my 1-year anniversary working in IT professionally. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. These are the ground rules. No one is blaming anyone in this room for institutionalized racism unless, you wrote laws, institutionalized racism, then I'm blaming you. Yes, we all have a burden from past actions of people in the past. We have all have these burdens. I have the burden of being Black, so that means when the police show up, I will be hiding somewhere. If you're white, you have the explanations, you're going to get me out of trouble. There are benefits that are enjoyed by the majority of the people that grants a level of privilege and ignorance on the subject of diversity. If you're a man, you don't know what women go through in IT. You know on an intellectual level, but you don't understand on an emotional level. Let's try that. All right. I don't speak for every minority. I don't speak for every Black person. I don't speak for everybody in Chicago. So there's those issues right there. I am just here as a guide and an ambassador. I will guide you if you have any questions, you have any concerns, you have anything like that. What I'm here for is to give you the groundwork and the steps and the tools in your mind to be conscious of when you start looking at your organization, your company, your field, your team, so that you can start thinking about these things and be conscious of them, because that's what the goal is. The goal isn't we can't fix everything in a day, but if you're conscious of those things, that goes a lot further than not being conscious of them. Let's see. So, the beginning. Majority Hispanic and majority Black schools on average in cities are overcrowded, and they suck. I went to those overcrowded schools, and then I ended up going to private schools, and ended up going back to public schools or public schools in the suburbs, and it's a stark difference. It goes from being 40 kids in a class to 18 kids in a class, and the teacher actually not being a first-year teacher and actually knowing what they're talking about and not having books that says the civil rights movement is trouble ahead. So, it's a good thing. It's a stark difference. And when you have those overcrowded schools, a lot of people don't realize schools are based upon the income tax rate of the people that live in the neighborhoods. Even in Chicago, if you were to go to the south side, the school quality will be drastically different than if you go on the north side. Even though technically it takes the entire income tax base of the city of the Cook County, it still is a drastic difference between where you are in Cook County. This is the racial wealth gap. White people, you got all the money. I ain't got shit. I'm putting it to you like that. If you're Hispanic, you got a little bit more shit, but you ain't got much either. If you're Asian, you got some of the white people's shit. So, broke. Society. 1 in 15 black males and 1 in 36 Hispanic males are incarcerated versus 106 white males. The statistic stands right now that 1 in 3 black males have been in jail, in prison, on parole, or on probation right now. That's 33% of your workforce that's automatically excluded by the simple fact that background checks, and a lot of companies do not want to hire people who have records. Ethnic names on resumes get thrown out or overlooked by recruiters in tech. If you have an ethnic name, you get advised to shorten your name to only use your first and middle initial and your last name. That is advice. People will tell you that, like, you need to hide the fact that you're black until you show up for the interview. A black male with a college degree has an equal chance as a white male with a felony on his criminal record for getting the same jobs when submitting the same resume. Chicago Booth Business School, right here in Chicago, has done a lot of research on just that. When I say hacker, there really aren't any popular examples of someone that looks like a hacker that's a minority. If you Google search hacker, every image that shows an actual person is a white male. So if you're a woman, no real examples in the media. If you're black, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, no real examples in the media. Even the hackers that have been put out there, with Edward Manning, if you're gonna call stealing a whole bunch of stuff and burning a CD hacking, white guy. Edward Snowden, white guy. All the guys from LulzSec, white guys, except for the guy that snitched on him, which kind of disappeared. But that was a Hispanic dude. But I'm just saying, it's mostly white dudes, what I'm saying. Just can't throw a random Hispanic in there and think everything's cool. Arrest rates for marijuana possession. So even though white people smoke more weed than black people get arrested all the time. So that also shows you that there is a disparity in how the law enforcement enacts the same laws. You also have stuff like the crack versus cocaine sentencing, which if you have 1 gram of crack, that counts as 100 grams of cocaine, even though white people and black people do cocaine regardless of what form it takes and about the same rates. So if you're black and you get caught with crack, you're going to do the same time for somebody who was white who had 100 grams of cocaine. And the racism that I'm speaking of is pervasive in every aspect, whether it's school, whether it's the law, whether it's interacting with the police, whether it's getting on the internet, which brings me to my next slide. Racism is everywhere on the internet. It's extremely racist. If you Google search why are black people, you get loud, black, spooks, and lazy. Why are y'all white people searching that? Why are you asking these questions? Asians are just as bad, even worse. That's a picture of what skin tone looks like in paint. Raise your hand if that's the color of your skin tone. The Asian guy's skin tone. This is an Activia commercial. Somebody point out the problem with this. Why is she holding a white stomach? This is, if you're black, first off, if you've ever used Xbox Live and you've played Call of Duty, this should not surprise you. I cannot think of a Call of Duty game where I didn't get insulted and called a nigger by some 12-year-old kid whose voice was just starting to crack. Even if you go outside, let's say you're driving on the highway, you'll see stuff like this. This doesn't even make sense. Do your duty to vote, don't renege. Renege is a spades term, which means do not play a spade and then play another card that you said you didn't have after it. That doesn't make any sense in the spades context, and it's a racist thing to put because you're basically saying don't renege. So, and you drive down the street, you just see stuff like that. That's just A-okay to throw up on the side of the highway. That's why when I tell people that racism isn't some thing that like some dude in the Ku Klux Klan just busts into my bedroom and goes nigger and runs off. That's not what happens. That's a boogeyman. That's a fiction. That's how people rationalize casual racism by going, well, I'm not that guy. I don't do that to minorities, so I'm not a racist. It's the casual racism. It's the stuff that you encounter every day, whether you get on Reddit and there's a R racism. There's a subreddit for racism that takes the top comments from stuff that's on the front page and shows 2 to 3 times a day the top comment is something racist from like whatever's on the front page of Reddit for that day. That's insane. You can't. It's something that is inescapable, and it's something that the way I explain to my white colleagues how racism is being black, it's like child porn. It's like you can't pinpoint it, but you know it when you see it. And you can't, if you've never been exposed to it, or it's just like regular porn. Like if I just showed a vagina, but it was a medical picture, you'd be like, well, that's not porn. But if I showed a Pornhub vagina, you'd be like, all right, that's porn, because it's the context and intent that really boils down to it that a lot of people don't see because it's not directed at them, because they didn't grow up with it, because it was never a part of their existence. So a lot of what people experience and their lived experiences are defined by that. So I spoke with Eve Adams, and this is what she told me. Yeah! She has told me that recruiters have thrown out resumes for people with names that were too black because there's no way Shaniqua could be a developer with a ghetto name like that. Because, yes, we all chose our names. Huh? You don't do that because she's awesome. But there are recruiters out there that are unscrupulous and do that. So when you have a stack of resumes fly across your desk from a recruiter, there is a chance the black resumes may have been thrown out because of their names, because there's no way Ladarius knows Perl and Python. He might know all the Python, all of it. The network, when most people grow up and go to school and live in racially segregated neighborhoods. The school system in our neighborhoods right now are more racially segregated than they have been in the past 40 years. And most of us tend to network when we went to high school and college with. So if you went to a grade school that was majority white, high school that was majority white, college that was majority white, chances are most of your friends are going to be majority white. And so when your boss goes, hey, you know anybody that needs a job? What is the racial makeup of your friends going to be? Your uncle, what? There you go. There we go. That's the answer I'm looking for. So what do we end up with? Engineering and coding culture is highly masculinized. Heterosexualized corporate homogeneity and educational segregation lead to the dominance of white males at all levels of computational technology enterprises. This is despite the fact that women dominate university admissions. Engineering and computer science are still male bastions. That was Andre Bach, assistant professor at University of Iowa for computer science and for admissions. So what do we end up with? Most of the top software companies in the world hire from the top universities, so Harvard, Yale, places like that, which have comparatively tiny minority enrollment, and then even smaller when you start to look at actual majors in the STEM field. 1% of venture capitalists-backed internet seed and Series A companies have a black founder, and 83% are all white teams. So what are the effects of this? HP lost the new face tracking camera. Guess what race it can't see? It can't see black people. Black identifying names when typed into Google are 25% more likely to be served with a arrest-related ad. That means if you type in Gregory Thomas, guess what you get? Let's see Gregory Thomas' police record. I don't have one, but guess what? Yes, will pop up. Pattern recognition by venture capital and tech companies that is used to predict success tend to bear out the same kind of person. Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, white guys. That's it. That went to top schools and then either dropped out or stayed and invented something. That's what they look for. When VCs look for, like, let's go to Harvard and see if we can find anybody there. They look for a specific stereotype that bears us all out because they go, well, all these white dudes before it made it, so we're going to look for white dudes to keep making it. So let's talk stats. Research by analyst firm Catalyst shows that companies with the highest proportion of women board directors outperform those with lower proportions by 53%. They have a 42% higher return on sales and 66% higher return on invested capital. Yes. So the income gap resulting in part of racism costs the United States about $1.9 trillion a year. Trillion with the T. This ain't chump change. It's a lot of money. So this is what happens when you have racism in advertising. Yeah, that was a Nivea ad. Nivea also makes skin lightening cream in Africa. Just in case you didn't know that. Yeah, go ahead, Intel. That sends a good message. Anybody see the problem with that? Yeah. Intel. Oh, Intel Core 2 Duo. So it wasn't pre-racism. Let's put it that way. So the solution, I'm not that smart. I don't have all the answers. But what I do have is a lot of tools and things you should and shouldn't do. So tools for success, what you shouldn't do. Leave the cultural, racial, gender questions at home. If you have a Hispanic coworker, don't ask him what's the best tortillas to cook at home. That's not nice. Don't do that. If you have an Asian coworker, don't ask him, hey, I'm buying 2 bags of rice. Which one's better? It's a presupposition on that person when we all know how to use Google here, correct? We all know how to use Google? We all know how to use Google. You can Google a lot of stuff. Yelp has reviews. You can look up stuff. Don't police how minorities in your company speak out about injustice committed in the company or field. Don't say, hey, I understand that guy was racist, but, I like him, so you can't say that he's racist. That happens. It happens a lot. It happens quite more often than you think, that people will tell you you can't say certain things about certain people because, well, this guy's doing this and he's doing this for the company, so, keep a lid on it until later on. Don't police how they react either. You may not have been dealing with the racism or the sexism, so it's really hard to tell someone how to deal with something that they've been dealing with their whole lives. Just like you wouldn't tell a cancer patient, stop crying. Cancer's not that bad. It is. It sucks. I've been through it. Chemotherapy sucks. It's not okay to lean on the class of people that are being oppressed to solve the system or your discomfort with it. Don't go, well, don't go to the only black guy in the office and say, hey, we have a diversity problem. Let's fix it. You need to fix it. Like, that's not his responsibility to fix the fact that the company's not hiring any black people or any Hispanics or any Asians. It's not fair to them. On allies, this is a really good quote from Martin Luther King. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peach, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peach, which is the presence of justice. Wisconsin says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from the people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from the people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Basically, if you're going to be with me 100%. Don't do it halfway. Don't do it half-ass. 100%. If you're going to be committed to diversity, be committed to diversity within your teams. If you're a hiring manager, you have the direct option to add diversity to your team. You have the direct option to say, no, this cannot be all the people that are qualified. We need to actually expand our search, look for people who are not normally looked for. If you work at a place that needs sysadmins, I can point you to about 10 computer shops in Chicago that have guys that can put together and disassemble any PC or server. If you need DT techs, they know how to do it. They can do it off the top of their head. They can do it with their eyes closed. But guess what? They don't have a path from I'm working in this place for $9 an hour to working in a data center, because there's no real organized path for that. They may not have access to the same networks we have. They may not have the same friends we have. They may not use Twitter. They may not be in the same social networks as us. So tools for success. It depends on the avenues available to you or your department or your division of your company. If you're the CEO, you are the direct reason why there's the lack of diversity in there, because the diversity is out there. It is out there. You just have to know where to look. It's not always going to be in the same place you look for everyone else. Just like I said, you can look in these computer shops. If you're hiring DC techs, I've met people that cannot write a resume but can do a better job than me when it comes to DC operations. And I'm a sysadmin. DC operations is not my bag. I have to do it, but it's not my bag. But I know people who are much better at it than I am. But if you ask them to submit a resume, they've never had to. They've never written a resume. They've been doing the same thing since they were 14, got a job at the local PC store and been doing that ever since. They don't know that there's another path to it. There's a upward trajectory for them. You have your individual tools versus your company tools. Individually, you can volunteer. There's a high school here in Chicago that is devoted to IT, that teaches development and web design and all computer science courses, AP science courses before they get sent off to college to become developers. You can volunteer your time. They're always looking for volunteers. Company tools. You have internships. You can start after school clubs. If you can get $5,000 to $10,000 for your company, that's tax writable because it's been towards a nonprofit, to start an inner city club. Donate your old servers. Donate your old switches. Take 4 hours a month to teach kids how to use a Cisco switch or how to do sysadmin work or how to do InfoSec or how to read Python code. It doesn't take much, but just starting that spark, because the spark isn't there. There is no there because it doesn't exist to them. I didn't know InfoSec was a thing till I was 24 years old. I didn't know hackers were an actual thing outside of movies till I was 24. Just by virtue of the way I grew up and in my existence. Bridging the gap, outreach. Outreach, I would say, is the biggest thing to do. If you can reach out, if you can give a part of yourself and give your time, not necessarily your money, but your time. It's the time, it's the exposure. When you get exposed to things, it awakens things that you may not even know that you liked or that you wanted to do with your life. And that's where the biggest goal is. Trade a degree. If you're a developer, I say get a degree. If you want to be a sysadmin at InfoSec, depends. We got people in here that used to be lawyers, that have degrees in film, that used to be electricians, that are now working at InfoSec. It's all about having a desire, and that also reaches back to the outreach point. Meritocracy or networking. Who can sit here and say they got to where they were 100% because of their skills? Now, who can say they got there because of their skills and because of the people they knew? Exactly. So if you grew up in the hood and you don't know anybody in this room and you don't know any other major players, what do you think their chances are of them being able to even get an InfoSec or get noticed or have an opportunity? Not going to be. It's very slim to none. Soft skills versus hard skills. We can say our hard skills are important, but knowing which hands to shake and when to shake them is just as important as knowing how to SSH to a server, how to run Metasploit, how to use Armitage, how to read Python, how to type up Ruby code, how to fuzz a network. All those things are just as important as knowing people. And in conclusion, I want to close with this. Yes, I am a criminal. My crime is that of curiosity. My crime is that of judging people by what they say and think and not what they look like. My crime is of outsmarting you of something that you will never forgive me for. That was the mentor. I like this because it is a call to action, because this is an ideal. We are not there yet. I would like for us to get there. I would like for us to walk into work, be able to look around and feel comfortable knowing that everyone here got here because they not only had the opportunity, but they also had the skills to get here. They didn't get here through nepotism. They didn't get here through pure networking or who they were related to. They got here because they deserved to be here, because they were the best at what they do. That's what I want. I want competition, because competition fosters growth. And if everyone has the opportunity to compete, then we all win because we're all better for it. Thanks for your time. And I have a bunch of required reading materials if you want to know more about all the things I talked about and all the sources I cited, just more information. It's a whole bunch, so when you look at the slides, there's a whole bunch of them.